welcome to another episode of The Encounter. How do you see AI ops getting influenced and impacted by Gen AI?
AI ops is designed through machine learning. By definition, it can't keep up with constant change that happens in the modern infrastructure.
Is Hawkeye an AI agent fine-tuned for the SRE operations?
It follows a certain set of rule books or run books.
This is the true software as a service. Now we are at this cusp of service as software. Hawkeye is a classic example of it. And as you said, you can hire and fire these agents. You can have a crew of them. You can have very diverse set of agents working for you. I really like that analogy, and I think it gives the choice and freedom to customers.
I really do think that that's where things are going to go.
I'm fascinated by what you're building as the Hawkeye tool.
It has a persona. It's not a tool. It's actually a member of your engineering staff.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Encounter. And today we have a guest who is well known in the cloud native circles, and now he is making an impact in the generative AI and the SRE digital twin ecosystem. So what does it mean and what it really means to the ecosystem? So, we have Goutham Rao, fondly known as Goo, who is the co-founder and CEO of NeuBird, who is building a new tool called Hawkeye. So Goo, welcome to my show. It's great to have you.
Well, Johnny, nice to be working with you again. I know we've had some history with our prior lives at Portworx, and hence the cloud native, your commentary on that. But glad to be talking to you here this evening or morning or wherever the audience are.
Perfect. So, Go, I have been tracking your journey since Portworx and now at NeuBird, and I'm fascinated by what you're building as the Hawkeye tool. But let me step back a little and ask you a very fundamental question. Maybe this is what is going on in the minds of my audiences and even within the community. So AI ops as a term has been around for a long time, since the emergence of machine learning and AI. This term called AI ops, where we infuse AI into our IT operations, has been around for a long time. So with the advent of Gen AI and Gen AI becoming the most popular modern AI implementation, how do you see AI ops getting influenced and impacted by Gen AI?
Great question, Johnny. One of the things that I'd like to clarify, first of all, is Hawkeye, we'd like to think of it as it has a persona. It's not a tool. It's actually a member of your engineering staff. So we like to personify Hawkeye. And, what Hawkeye is a member of your IT operations teams working alongside your coworkers. And when we offer Hawkeye, we're actually offering Hawkeye as an employee as a service. So people are hiring Hawkeye. They're not installing or deploying Hawkeye as a tool. So that's a distinction that I'd like to make throughout this presentation. And it'll make more sense as we get into how Hawkeye works and why we like to personify it. But also it's relevant to the question you just asked, which is AI. You asked, well, how is this different from AI ops? And so AI ops, has it has really shown some significant improvements in traditional observability and IT operations. However, being born through machine learning and its approaches that typically are rooted in rule-based approaches, and it's AI ops is designed through machine learning. By definition, it can't keep up with the constant change that happens in the modern infrastructure. In AI ops, you've designed the system for a very specific purpose or a use case once. But what it eventually ends up having to solve is very different, and it's almost always different from what it's been designed for. And that's been the flaw, in our opinion, in AI ops. And what Gen AI based ops, we call it Gen Ops, does is it brings the creativity, the reasoning that is inherent in these large language models, deep memory. They've seen so many different scenarios that they are able to map a current situation to what they've seen in the past to help come up with a proper solution. What NeuBird's job is to personify Hawkeye in such a way that it can extract the deep knowledge that exists in these LLMs to apply it to the current situation at hand. In other words, a very simple way of answering your question is we're not applying machine learning methods to apply when we're looking at telemetry or debugging a certain problem. Hawkeye is not applying an opinionated approach based on machine learning to solve that problem. Rather, it's asking the LLMs, if I'm having this problem, sort of like asking a doctor in a consultation kind of mode, what can I do to diagnose this? And the answer is not always going to be immediate. It's not going to be, I see A, therefore B. It's going to be, I see A, therefore let's try the following things, get some more information and some more information and some more information, and let's work together on this collaboratively, iteratively, to come up with a solution to your problem. That's what Gen AI allows us to do differently from traditional AI ops.
Perfect. Yeah, it's pretty interesting that you mentioned Hawkeye is not a tool and it's a persona. So that actually brings me to this question on your thought process and point of view on agents, because every time we hear about adding a persona to an LLM, we think of an agent. And today, agentic AI and agentic workflows are the buzzwords. They are resonating among CXOs and also the developers. So, is Hawkeye an AI agent fine-tuned for the SRE operations?
So the word agent is it takes on many different words and has different connotations. So while in one definition it would qualify as an agent, I can describe to you what Hawkeye does and let you and the audience figure out what to call Hawkeye and how to tag Hawkeye. What Hawkeye does is it follows a certain set of rule books or run books that we and the rest of the founding team at NeuBird have written. Just by way of background, the founding team at NeuBird comes from many years of experience in enterprise IT operations. So most of the problems that Hawkeye is solving, almost all of them, are problems that I've had to deal with. So this comes from a lot of pain, a lot of street knowledge that we've learned at 2 a.m. having to troubleshoot problems. So what we've done is we've codified a language in which we can extract the knowledge from these LLMs. We don't talk to the LLMs in English. We talk to them through a language which NeuBird has written called Rail, which is an IT telemetry language, which is specifically designed to have the LLMs construct a thought process that mimics what I would do, what some of my other colleagues at NeuBird would do if we were faced with the same problem. So now, is it an agent? Or is it a duplication of me? I would like to think of Hawkeye in some manner as a duplication of me, at least for this particular task at hand, which is to solve an IT problem. And so in a way, I'm making a photocopy of myself and offering that as a service to other enterprises that want to hire me to solve IT problems. But and quite honestly, Hawkeye can do that a lot faster than me because I get tired, and at 2 a.m, it takes me some time to get up to speed. But Hawkeye is always on, can always crank through, metrics, grep through logs, but come up with a thought process. And the way in which we do this is we don't actually give the telemetry to the LLMs. We don't need to do that. All we need to do is extract the thought process from the LLMs, its reasoning capabilities to say, I'm having this problem, where should I look? Where to look is a big part of the problem, because when you're dealing with IT telemetry, forget looking for a needle in a haystack. You're looking for multiple needles in multiple haystacks, and you're drawing correlations. And all we're asking the LLMs to do is help us do that. And so Hawkeye can, iteratively isolate and identify the problem. So this is a long-winded way of answering your question. Is it an agent? Is it a persona? Is it an employee? I think that's ahead of us. It's for not just me, but for everybody to kind of collectively come up with an answer for that. And I think, at some point in the future, we're all going to be working alongside Gen AI born engineers. And so what you label it, or him or her, that's not for me to decide. All I can say is what we're trying to accomplish here.
Excellent. That's very fascinating. And based on my initial research and my limited experience of even using the tool, I actually call it as the SRE digital twin. That's my definition, because in a lot of ways, Hawkeye accomplishes the same tasks and has the same success metrics as an SRE. So for me, it's almost like a digital twin. What's your take on that? Do you consider that as an SRE digital twin?
Yeah, I think, in how our customers use Hawkeye or how they hire Hawkeye, primarily two modes. Um, One is as an assistant, as a co-pilot is another word I've heard people use, where it is part of the SRE's, one of the SRE's or human SRE's colleagues. And so if they had a question, they could ask Hawkeye to go answer the question. They could go in and say, hey, I'm facing this problem, Hawkeye, can you go solve it? While the human engineer is working on maybe something more creative. Hawkeye will take a couple of minutes, go do the work, come back with some information. And so that's a mode in which people are very comfortable using Hawkeye to do, saves them a lot of time, a lot of bandwidth. We all use Chat GPT, this and that during our day work, and we all know how useful it is. This is a lot more than that because it's doing a very specific task based on IT telemetry, which is very different from asking GPT a general purpose question. But so that's one mode. But the other mode is where an SRE could say, "Hey, I am on duty tonight to respond to alerts. I have an SLA, but Hawkeye, you have the wheel for the next couple of hours. You answer the alerts, and Hawkeye will automatically respond to a pager duty alert or a Jira ticket, go through its process, come up with a resolution, and so it's on autopilot in that mode." In that mode, is it an assistant or somebody that you've hired to do your job for a while? And so while you could do more creative things, these are, look, all I'm trying to say is the future of the workforce, and I can see this in an IT space because I come from that space, but I'm pretty sure the same thing is happening in all facets of the industry, in various industries. People will have these, you said digital twin. Yes, I'll have a digital twin to go do my work while I can do other stuff. And I become twice the engineer or twice the employee or three times or four times.
Absolutely. What you said is right. This is revolutionizing and disrupting almost every facet of our industry. If you look at Cursor, if you look at Windsurf, if you look at Klein, those are becoming the developer digital twins. And you feed a prompt like a product manager tells a developer, and it goes ahead and writes code, not just one a piece of code, but it can generate the entire artifact, and it can even kick off the CI/CD pipeline. So this is happening across multiple job functions. So
Yeah.
we'll leave it to the industry to define whether it's a copilot or an agent or a digital twin. But the other fascinating thing that you mentioned, Go, is the whole industry, when it brings knowledge to an LLM, it uses RAG. RAG is now a standard, a golden standard to bring knowledge base to an LLM. You first index the data, and once the data is indexed, you basically use the same embeddings to feed the context to an LLM, and then the LLM responds. And pretty much this is how all the LLMs and RAG agents and RAG tools function. So telemetry is almost like drinking from the fire hose. You cannot index telemetry data that is generated at the speed of light. So how do you basically make sure that Hawkeye sits at this intersection of the origin of telemetry, right, and then the observability platforms like Datadog and Splunk and Elk Stack and others, and then incident management tools like Jira? So what is your approach to Hawkeye? Do you use RAG, or do you use a
No, we don't use RAG in how you described it because of exactly what you said. There's too much telemetry, too many sources of information, and you wouldn't know what to give the LLM as context. RAG is, very much associated with where people are building chatbots or trying to do, a prompt engineering. For telemetry, that doesn't work because First of all, you want to avoid hallucinations. Second of all, you don't even know what to provide as context, or the context windows are too large. And it doesn't matter that these LLMs are tolerating larger context windows, because in a lot of times, the larger the context window, the more garbage you have. And so it defeats the purpose. The problem statement here is you always have some augmentation you need to do to the LLMs. The question is, what are you augmenting? And that's where NeuBird comes in. Our job is to surgically ask the LLM, I have this problem, and we codify the problem in a language, like I mentioned, which is called Rail. And we ask the LLM, and we're not giving the LLM any telemetry. It doesn't need to see it to identify the problem. We're asking the LLM, you are the brains behind all IT scenarios. You know everything about Kubernetes. You know everything about serverless. You know everything about databases, networking, security, and so on, apparently. What should I look for if I have this ailment? And let the LLM come up with a prescription, like a doctor would, a diagnosis in multiple steps. And Hawkeye will go do the job of extracting the information from the telemetry sources on an as-need basis, in a just-in-time basis. If we need to look at a CPU sample from a specific EC2 instance at 2:01 a.m., we'll go do that. The LLM doesn't need to see that sample. We will determine if that's high, medium, low, and what the causality is and what the repercussions of that are. We can do that. But the LLMs are guiding the thought process in a way a very intelligent engineer would. That's, in our opinion, that's the best way to get the best possible results, the most meaningful results, the most accurate results. Simply scraping data and throwing it at the LLM and having it generate something new, it can do that. And that works really great for marketing material and sales material. But the last thing somebody needs when they're dealing with an IT problem is a regurgitation of that in a completely different, unrelated, irrelevant scenario. And now you're solving a problem that doesn't exist.
Excellent. Excellent. Very fascinating. So tell us more about the technical implementation. So which platforms do you support? Which infrastructure environments? I read on your website that you are actually calling Hawkeye as the ITOps agent. So is it on-prem? Is it cloud? What are the various tools that you support?
We support multiple environments. Primarily, most of our users are born in the cloud, but Hawkeye itself runs in the cloud. And that's because we have to run the LLMs. Maybe over here, I can describe a little bit about how Hawkeye is offered. It is a SaaS platform. We like to think of it as an employee as a service. So you're hiring Hawkeye, but in that sense, Hawkeye comes with all of the tools it needs. So you don't have to provide us GPUs, LLMs, this and that. Quite honestly, we prefer you don't, because we have carefully hand-selected and fine-tuned some of these for different scenarios. And by the way, we're constantly updating these every night. As we get feedback, we do human reinforced training every day. So this is a constantly iterative cycle, and that's something NeuBird will perpetually be doing. So all this to say that Hawkeye is offered as a service, runs in the cloud. Your environment could run anywhere. All we require is that Hawkeye has the ability to connect to it. Obviously, if your environment is in the cloud, this is infinitely easier because we just use cloud-based techniques to connect to it. What do I mean by that? If you're in AWS, you would give us a read-only ARN. We're an ephemeral system. We don't store any of your data. If you were to look at the IT observability stack, there's your application, there's your compute infrastructure, application infrastructure, and then there's your observability tools, things like logging platforms, metrics, maybe you're using Prometheus, this and that. And on top of that, there's a human engineer that has some interface, maybe a dashboard or a query interface into the observability tools. That's the layer Hawkeye sits at. All it needs is a simple query interface to your observability platforms, read-only, and it will tap into it on an as-need basis. So you asked the question, what platform environments do we support? We support any environment as long as we can tap into your telemetry sources. If you're running in the cloud, you're using cloud-native observability tools. Amazon has CloudWatch, Cloudmetrics. Azure obviously has Azure Monitor. And then sometimes you're using third-party observability tools like legacy tools like Splunk, Datadog, and we'll support any of those environments. But Hawkeye will read into that, capture the telemetry it needs to solve the problem.
Perfect. So let me make sure I visualize this right, and it also helps my audience. So basically, Hawkeye sits at the intersection of three different streams. One stream is the infrastructure that could be cloud or on-prem, which is the origin of the telemetry. Now, the second is the observability layer, which is like New Relic or Datadog or Splunk or Honeycomb, one of those. And then you have the ITSM tools like ServiceNow or Confluent,
PagerDuty.
Confluence from
Yeah.
Atlassian. Yeah. So this basically sits right at the intersection of all these three and orchestrates the data that is flowing in from all these to handle the workflow. Is that right?
100%. That's the universe of the sources of its. And just to add to this, look, the more information you give Hawkeye, the better. Just like you, when you hire an engineer, look, don't constrain the engineer. Give the engineer access to everything. So in that sense, it would be helpful if Hawkeye knew how the environment was deployed. Sometimes these could be Ansible, Terraform scripts, CloudFormation. If it has access to Git, maybe you could see, hey, look, I see a check-in happen here in the area that I'm seeing the problem. So any and all of that telemetry information. So anything that's IT telemetry related with and everything you said, plus the things I mentioned make sense. And in some cases, people like to share social media or messaging systems like Slack. Maybe there's an incident going on and somebody has a war room set up on Slack. Inviting Hawkeye to come in and maybe silently listen in so it can pick up on keywords and key topics as additional context is always helpful.
Great. But Gu, there is one more important source that typically an L1 engineer or an SRE would tap into, and that is the internal knowledge base, wiki, SharePoint portals. So do you also feed that channel to Hawkeye?
100%. Standard operating procedures. There's a number of terms these go by. It's a common practice for well-established IT organizations to keep these things in service now is a common environment. People will have internal, workspaces where they have the knowledge base articles or knowledge bases where they have this. So interesting use cases include where Hawkeye would say, hey, I'm solving this issue. By the way, I noticed that a similar ticket was raised 6 months ago, and here's the service now, and it can regurgitate the whole conversation. And so to answer your question, one common use case that we found is where people will say, Hawkeye, go watch this environment. Historically, this particular cluster is problematic and has been raising these issues. Well, Hawkeye wouldn't know that going in, but giving it those kind of standard operating procedures only makes things a lot easier.
Perfect. Thanks for that technical deep dive. It does clarify a lot of things. Now, switching gears, first of all, congratulations. You were featured in Gartner's Cool Vendor
Thank
report
you.
that came out recently. And as we can see, there are half a dozen to 10 companies that are emerging in this space who are calling themselves as the co-pilots or AI assistants for SREs and ITOps. So what is your differentiating factor compared to other emerging players in this space?
Johnny, it's hard for me to speak on behalf of others because this space is moving so rapidly. There's the primary difference I cite is that most people are approaching this as if it's a RAG type problem because it's so easy to write Chat GPT scripts and add chatbots. So majority of the people, without knowing who specifically you have in mind, I would say fall in that bucket. But look, these are early days. Technologies will evolve, their approaches will evolve, various solutions will have varying degrees of success. But my comment to your audience would be this: don't overthink it that much because at the end of the day, you're not hiring one engineer. You have the luxury to hire multiple engineers to supplement your workforce. So if you just take my word for by face value or somebody else, one of these other 10 companies you mentioned, their words for face value, you don't have to lock yourself into a technology. That's the beauty of this. This is not an observability platform. It's an engineer that uses existing observability tools. So you're not locking yourself. You're not giving us your data. We hope Hawkeye is going to be your best performing engineer, but you have the luxury of making that decision. You could hire us, you could hire other people and see, who's working out, and maybe eventually your workforce will have a combination of these. And I think that will really be the case where There are different agents that are specifically good at different tasks, which, by the way, is not that different from when you have if you look around to your engineering, your audience that are hiring managers, look at your team. You have maybe 10 people, and not all of them are the same. There's probably somebody that's good at networking, somebody that's good at Kubernetes, and you have a team of people. And so I think down the line, you will have a team of whatever we decided to call this, agents, co-workers, co-pilots, I don't know, but there's going to be a team of Gen AI born engineers and certainly employees, and you're going to hire many of them.
Absolutely. This is the true evidence of service as software. So long we have seen software as a service, but now we are at this cusp of service as software where agents will close the loop and do the last mile interaction with whatever it is to make sure that the action is taken. And Hawkeye is a classic example of that. And as you said, you can hire and fire these agents. You can have a crew of them. You can have very diverse set of agents working for you. I really like the technology, and I think it gives the choice and freedom to customers without getting locked in, because it is ephemeral, it is stateless. Just like you hire an intern and send them off after 3 months, you can actually evaluate and treat them like an intern or hire as a full-time employee.
100%, Johnny. I really do think that that's where things are going to go. We've seen, and I like that term, that this is service as software. I'll be sure to use that.
Great. So coming to your offering, so do you have like a freemium offering, or is it a pro subscription? How does that work?
So, unfortunately, because these are, in my past life, we offered, software for free for trial, and it was easy to do because you're downloading the software and you're using it. But in Hawkeye's case, we're running the GPUs. We incur the inference costs. So what we do is offer, Hawkeye is available in the marketplace. So you can find Hawkeye relatively soon on, Azure Marketplace and AWS and so on. And the good news is that it would just come out of your cloud spend. And so that's the easiest way to try it. It's very cost effective. I'll just say that it's a very minimal commit on anybody's part to try Hawkeye out.
Awesome. So finally, tell us about the company, the founding team, the founding engineers. How is your startup structured?
Look, we are, I've done this a few times before. This is, I think I know it's the fourth time that I've been doing this. And so this is, the team has got, we're about, I would say close to around 30 people at this point, mostly engineering with a really good go-to-market team, with, alliances and business development and so on. The founding team are people that have been in this enterprise IT infrastructure space. A lot of them are people that I worked with in the past. Vinod Jayaraman, who's my co-founder, we've been in the past three companies together. We share a passion for data science. We share a passion for fast-paced innovation. We share a passion for AI. Both of us focused on AI in our graduate school. And actually, the beauty of what we're doing at NeuBird is that it's bringing a lot of our passions to convergence here, which is we love data science, we love AI. This is marrying AI and data science. And the third angle here is we really hate IT operations. And we want to basically just reinvigorate that and have Hawkeye do this. So, myself and nobody has to go through what I've been through for the past 25 years. And, not just, we have a very strong customer focus in our DNA. So whenever, in any of our previous companies, a customer would say, hey, I know this isn't your product's problem, but I'm having this issue. Our knee-jerk reaction would be like, hey, we got to see what's going on. Let's help you. And so we'd always be like that. And so we've learned a lot, with that kind of attitude. And so codifying that so that we can make that available in the market to everybody is very exciting for us.
Amazing. And again, congratulations for Microsoft's M12 investment. I read that on TechCrunch recently. So tell us about your funding and the roadmap, how you want to evolve Hawkeye and NeuBird going forward.
Yeah, we're fortunate to be working with Microsoft on this, and I actually think that Microsoft is the leader in AI, in enterprise AI especially. And for us to be able to leverage their, working with their engineering teams, and certainly the Microsoft brand is going to amplify what early success that we've shown in 2024 when we launched Hawkeye. And obviously, a lot of our users run on Azure, so this there's a very high overlap with what Azure monitoring tools do and what Hawkeye can do for those teams. What we hope to accomplish with this investment is amplify and accelerate our go-to-market. And if you were to talk to me last year, there were a lot of engineering unknowns. The engineering team diligently worked on getting those sort of ironed out, and so there are far fewer engineering unknowns at this point. So what that means is now I know exactly where we can use this additional financing, which is not really on engineering, but mostly on go-to-market and amplification and education, and understanding that this is an early path for most enterprises, right? You look at the born in the cloud companies and they're ready to adopt AI, but then you look at the traditional enterprises, they're trying to understand where does Gen AI fit within their roadmap. And so a lot of this is to educate them into saying, look, it's okay to work alongside digital engineers. It's safe. There's no privacy concerns if it's done correctly. And it will only make your operations a lot easier. And that takes capital to do that kind of, launch that kind of a campaign. And that's what this is going to allow us to do.
Excellent. So, Guth, thanks so much for joining me for this conversation. It's been very insightful and very fascinating to see the culmination of AI into ops and how they are coming together. And congratulations and best of luck to you and your team on your journey with NeuBird. This is your fourth venture, and I know this is going to be yet another blockbuster for you. So, wishing you all the success. And thanks again. Have a great year ahead.
Thank you, Johnny. Appreciate it. Have a good evening, or wherever somebody is. And for those that watch this, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Cool. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Goutham Rao from NeuBird for you. Thanks for joining us.